So here I have my Spartan box, and this has everything I need to build and program the robot Spartan with a couple downloads. And for the first time, a pair of scissors. Inside the Spartan box on the top, there's going to be an insert card that has a description of the Spartan, where to find resources, and how to register your product, as well as on the back we have a bill of materials of what comes inside the box. We're going to use the Getting Started guide in a little bit. I'll reference that. And in the first video, we showed how to install Arduino for Windows, and then also references how to get these resources. So if you haven't yet, check out the previous video to install your Arduino programming language and the Spartan libraries. I'm going to start by opening up all the bags and laying out all the parts, make sure I have everything, and start in an organized fashion. So here, I'm going to use scissors to open up each of these bags. We get 2 of the wheels. With these wheels, there's a small screw. You're going to need that. Keep track of that. There are also 2 DC motors. On the screw that comes with, there's a protective plastic piece on the tip. You can rip that off. The next thing I'm going to do is take out all the screws, and it comes with this very nice fastener case. You can open that up, and I'm going to open up the kit with all the screws and quick connects in it and put those into that kit so that when I build, I'm ready to go. So here I have all my screws laid out and the quick connects, and I'll fit in this kit perfectly. Next, I'm going to open up the charger. We don't need this yet, but the reason is I can charge my battery while I'm building my robot to make sure my battery has enough juice by the time I'm done building the robot. So you can open up this kit. This green guy is a Spartan battery, and then plug this guy into a wall, and the color is going to change on the charger when the charging is complete. There's also a electronics bag that has your USB cable, your Spartan controller, and a few sensors. Each sensor and the controller comes with a card insert that explains what the sensor is and how to use it. For right now, I'm going to set those aside. I'll keep them for reference later. And here we have the Spartan controller, a touch sensor, 2 optical distance sensors, a program control button, and a long USB cable to program your controller using the computer. Next, we have a kit of small parts that has a battery holder, a caster wheel, some very small set screws that go with the axle collar, and the axle hub that are in that same bag, a grommet and an axle. We also have a toolkit. This is going to come in very handy. And a bag of large building parts. So that's it. There's also maybe some bubble wrap in the box. Now keep this box because the Spartan base robot fits inside of here even when it's all built. You're not going to use all the tools in your toolkit, but you will end up using the biggest and second to biggest axle or hex drivers, as well as the socket driver. The biggest wrench may come in handy, although I'm not going to use it yet. Now you're going to open up your building instructions. These are online if you have installed your Spartan libraries. They're locally on your computer in your Documents and Modern Robotics Inc. folder. If you have not installed that, you can go to modernroboticsinc.com/Spartan, and there are building instructions on that page. You can just open up from your web browser. So we're going to open those up now and go through the building instructions. Today we're going to build the hand follower, although the hand follower and the line follower only differ by 1 piece of the instructions. So if you want to build either one, you can follow along pretty well. There are steps on the document. I'm going to list those up here, and you can follow along by looking at those steps. So I'm going to start with the base plate. I'm going to put the grommet in, and the grommet is to protect the wires that go through this hole and make sure they aren't cut by that piece of metal. And then on that same side of the grommet, I'm going to take 2 screws, and now you can do this with screws or quick connects. If you're going through 2 layers of metal, you can use the black quick connect. If you're going through a layer of plastic and a layer of metal, or if you're going through 3 layers of metal, you can use the white quick connect. These also work for securing the servo motors. You can use either one, the screws or the quick connects. Quick connects are a lot easier to put together than the screws. Today I'm going to be using the screws to assemble. With the screws, you're going to use the largest size hex screwdriver. So there's the first part of step 1. I'm going to put on the motor brackets or motor plates. The motor plates have a notch on one side of them. You can see how here it's notched out on this side and not on that side. And that should follow with the instructions. The motor hub should go on the notched side. Excuse me, the motor hub should go on the notched side. We're going to get to that in just a minute. So we've got that. This is step 1, and now we're going to go on to step 2. Now you can see how it's looking like the more and more how the quick connects are going to be a lot faster to build with. So I'm going to show a little bit of that. Since I'm going through a plastic part, the battery mount, I'm going to use white quick connects. I can just kind of push those in here. And that's a lot quicker to connect, and it's still on there just as sturdy. On to step 3. Now the only place you can't use quick connects are when you're going into the standoffs. So here I have standoffs on 4 standoffs going up to the top. This is what's going to hold on the controller. And the socket driver is going to help a lot with the standoffs. So here I'm going to put it on my hand, and I'll use the socket driver to twist that on a bit tighter. On to step 4, we're going to put on the controller. The button on the controller goes towards the side with the caster wheel. Now going into the plastic parts using metal screws, which you have to use going into these standoffs, be sure not to crank them down too much. You don't want to damage the plastic housing of the controller. Just enough to be snug so the screw won't come out. On to step 5, we are going to make a subassembly and then put that subassembly onto the robot. So we're going to take the robot we have so far and put it aside. And then for most of these steps, moving forwards, I recommend gathering the parts first that you're going to use so you don't miss any. So I'm going to use the big flange plate. I'm going to use 2 small gusset plates, 4 screws, and 4 nuts. or you can use 4 black quick connects. So I'm going to go with the quick connects. And then have the subassembly. So we're going to take the subassembly, and then we're going to bring the robot back on page 6. And first thing we're going to do is put that subassembly on there. So these 4 screws and 4 nuts that shows on step 5 are to connect the subassembly on. Again, I'm going to use quick connects for this. And then we're going to put the motors on. So with the motor, unwind the wire, and then put the wire through the hole first, and then put the motor in. And the shaft of the motor is going to go towards that notch that we talked about on the motor plate. So we're going to drop that down, and then use 4 quick connects to connect it to that motor plate. And then on the other side, we're going to do that same thing. Unwind the cable, put the cable through the hole, have the shaft line up with a notch, and then put 4 quick connects to secure the motor. Now there's a diagram on the instructions that shows where to connect each of the motors. So both of these wires are going to come up through the grommet on the plate of the robot. So you can insert both these wires through there first, making sure you know which one is which. On the picture of the robot in the instructions, it shows which motor is M1 and which motor is M0. Now that's half the battle, or half the challenge. So we're going to look at, I have M1 here, and that's going to plug into M1, and be sure that on M1, the red wire is on the right and the black is on the left. And then I'm going to take M0 and I'm going to plug in the red wire on the left and the black on the right, opposite of M1. And they're plugged in opposite directions so that when we give both motors a positive value, they're both going to go forwards. If they're plugged in opposite direction, or in the same direction, since the motors are on the left and right side of the robot, if we gave both motors a positive number, the robot would spin in circles, one motor forwards, other motor backwards. So to make this easier, we just switch the polarity of the motor when we plug it in. Again, reference that diagram on page 6 to see how to plug in the 2 motors. On to step 6 on page 7, we're going to connect the wheels. So I'm going to first put the wheel on there, and it has to line up with that spline shaft. And then I'm going to take a screw and put it into the hole, line up with that hole. And then the blue screwdriver, and we'll screw that the wheel in so it doesn't come off of the motor. On the other side, we'll do the same thing. On to the next step. We're going to put the battery onto the robot. Here's the battery I had charging. We're going to put it onto the bottom of the robot into that bracket. So first, you may need to move some wires out of the way from the motors, and then put one side of the battery in first, and then push down so that the other side will clip in. And now that battery is not going anywhere. You can take it back out if you need to switch batteries, but it's in there pretty good. Then we're going to insert the wire through the grommet, and this wire has a notch on it, so you can only insert into the hole one way on the controller. This is going to go into the 6-volt slot that shows the battery symbol underneath. My controller had me on, so the lights all came on. We can turn the controller off for now. I'm going to go on to the next step, and we're going to put on the touch sensor. So with the touch sensor, I'm going to insert it so that the wire comes back out the front. And we're only going to put 2 connectors on this one. I'm going to use quick connects, again, since it's going through plastic and then metal. Use the white quick connects, not the black ones, or you can use screws. So I'm going to use quick connects on the front, so that now my sensor is on there. And it shows on the diagram the colored port on the diagram is a sensor you're plugging in right now. So this shows that the sensor goes into D7, and the black wire always goes in on the right. For all the sensors and servos, the black wire goes in on the right, or the dark colored wire, sometimes it'll be brown. So you're gonna go into the D7 port. Next step is another subassembly. So I'm gonna take my robot and set it aside, and I'm gonna lay out all the pieces I need for the subassembly. I have a 3x3 gusset plate, I have 2 set screws, axle collar, axle hub, the axle. I'm also going to set aside my big plate and 2 of the long screws. And first we're going to assemble the axle hub. So I'm going to put the set screw into the axle collar first, and then using the smaller hex driver, I'm going to screw that in just loosely. I'm going to do the same thing on the axle hub as well. I'm going to take my set screw and screw it into the hole on the axle hub. Then I'll put my axle hub or axle collar onto the axle and just make that snug. And then I'll put it through the gusset or the flange plate. And then with a dimple on the axle hub facing the flange plate, and have it be flush with the edge of the axle, I'm going to tighten up that set screw as well. And then next, I'm going to screw this plate onto the front. This is going to be what touches your touch sensors. This is going to stay on the front of your robot, and when something hits the robot, your touch sensor is going to know. So this gives it a bigger area for something to touch your robot. I'm going to screw in these 2 screws, and they're going to go through the axle hub, and then they're going to extend through the 2 holes on the flange plate. So I'm going to keep going through there into those 2 holes, and it's just going to slide in and out on those 2 holes. So you can see how now if I hold onto the flange plate, this front plate will move in and out by about 8 millimeters. On the next step, we're going to screw this onto the robot. Although you can use quick connects if you like. Again, I'm going to use quick connects. I'm going to use the black quick connects, and I'm going to secure it onto the front of the robot. Now you can test to make sure you did this right by turning on the robot and then push in that front plate. And when it's pushed in, the touch sensor should illuminate blue. You can see how it's illuminating blue down here. And when you release it, it should turn off. On, off, on, off. It should move in and out really easily. Next, we're going to put on the optical distance sensors. And those show on the instructions that they're on A1 and A0. I'm going to put the cable through first, and I'm going to put that cable through so that it goes all the way to the back of the robot. A little cable management there. Just like that. And then using quick connects, I'm going to secure these 2 sensors to the robot. Now something you could do to make this process a little easier is to do one at a time and plug in one as you connect one, and then the next one as you connect one. That way you know which wire is which. But I know I have my 2 wires coming out the back, and this is for the right one, and this is for the left one. This is A1, and this is A0. So again, black wire on the right. I'm going to plug in A1, and then I'm going to plug in A0 with the black wire on the right. Black wire is on the left. Your sensor is not going to read anything to the controller. Going to the next step, and we have the program control button. The program control button allows you to pause and restart your robot at any time during your program. So I'm going to straighten out my wire for that. And you can put your program control button on either side on the back of the robot. And I'm going to use 2 quick connects to connect that sensor in. Now, again, throughout this entire thing, you can use quick connects or screws. I would highly suggest using quick connects for your optical distance sensors, because that way you can move your optical distance sensors around on your robot to do different programs. Because optical distance sensors are in the front for the line following program, but the top for the hand following program. So if you want to change between what you're doing, you just use quick connects to take it off and put it onto the front of your robot. So my program control button is secure. I'm going to put my wire through the bottom of the controller so that it's not just hanging out all over the place. And then the program control button by default connects to the port D2 that has PCB, which stands for program control button, written next to the D2. That way you can easily remember what that is. Now on D1 and D0, there's a TX and DX. Those sensors aren't out yet, but I'll leave it to your imagination to guess. Now the last page on the instruction document has instructions as to how to find the programming language and the libraries for this robot. You can also check out the first video we made as to how to install the Arduino programming libraries and how to run them. So I'm going to go ahead and install the hand following program onto this robot, and I can do a little demo for you. If you need more instructions, you can find the Getting Started guide at modernroboticsinc.com/Spartan, which is on the insert card that came in your kit. There are some extra parts in your kit. That's good. You can save those in case you lose any screws, and keep those all in this box. And remember that when you install your program, you can use this blue USB cable to connect your robot to your computer. I installed my program. I'm going to turn on the robot, and then the program control button is going to flash, waiting for me to press it before the program starts. So I'll press that button, and then bring my hand up and touch the optical distance sensors, and the robot is now following my hands using the optical distance sensor. You can take your box, and everything will fit back inside of there. So I've got my resource card, I have my cable, my Spartan, my spare parts, my tools. If you need help, be sure to email support@modernroboticsinc.com. I'm Colton from Modern Robotics. I'm excited that you're excited about the Spartan robot. For latest updates, be sure to follow us on Twitter and like us on Facebook. This robot! Oh, that's too cheesy.